Hello everyone, welcome back to another video of Code Pravah. Today, we'll be solving a problem which was asked during the front-end machine coding round in Amazon. So the problem statement is that we have to build a UI where users can draw circles at the exact position of each mouse click inside a div. Then, we have to implement undo and redo functionalities to let the user remove or re-add the circles in the correct sequence. This problem will test your React skill as well as problem solving skill. So let's get started. So I'm into my VS Code where I have created one project with the name of undo redo. And in my app component, I'm simply rendering one text that is undo and redo, which you can see right away here. So first thing first, I'll go into my src directory and I'll create one folder with the name of components. And inside this folder, I'm going to create my first component with the name of playground. And I'm quickly going to initialize this component and I'll move into my app.js and I'll import playground component right over here, and just after h1 tag I'm going to render it here. So you can see it is being rendered perfectly fine. So now let's go into our playground component and I'm going to remove this default div from here and I'll create one div, and inside this div I'll create another div and I'll give it a class name as button group, because this div will be containing two buttons, undo and redo. So we need two buttons. So what I'll do, I'll go into my components folder and I'll create another component with the name of button. Let me quickly initialize this component. So what I'll do, I'll remove this by default div and I'll create one button element, and this button component will receive some props, and the one prop which I'm interested in right now is children, and I'm going to render it right over here, which will be passed to this button component. Now let's go back into our playground component and I'm going to import that button component right over here, and inside this div which is having a class of button group, I'm going to render my button and the text I'll provide as undo, and similarly I'm going to render my second button and the text here I'll say is redo. So now you can see there are two buttons which are being rendered here. Now outside this div I'll create another div and I'll provide a class name as canvas container, and this div will be the boundary where we will be drawing our circles. So in order to draw the circles, I'm going to create another component and I'll name it as canvas, and I'm going to simply initialize this component, and then I'll go into my playground component where I will be importing the canvas component which we just created, and inside this canvas container I'm going to simply render my canvas component. Now before jumping on the functionality part, I would like to go into app.css to fix some styling issue, and this time we are not going into very fancy UI, we'll be just working with some normal CSS. So I'm going to take my first class, that is button group, and inside this I'll say display as flex, and then I want justify content to be center, and I want to maintain some gap between both the buttons which will be around 20 pixels, which is giving it a better look. And now I'm going to select my buttons on which I'm going to apply some CSS, and it will be just width of 100 pixels and height of 20 pixels, that's all. And then we have the canvas container, and for the canvas container I'll say display as flex, and I want to justify my content to center, and I want to align items to center, and then height I want to fix of 80 VH. And let's move to our playground and going into canvas, and I'm going to create one div here with the class name of canvas. And before walking onto the circles, I'm going to actually write CSS for this canvas component, and I'll say width as 80% and the height I want as 60 VH. And then I will apply some border that is 1 pixel solid and black color. And one thing I can notice that this div is not into center, so it may be because of the class mismatch. So yes, the spelling of container is mismatching, so let's fix it, and you can see it's working perfectly fine. Now let's work on adding the circles onto this canvas. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to import useState hook from React library, and I'll create one state with the name of points, and of course one setter function, and initially this state will be an empty array because we will be dealing with multiple points. That's why I have taken it as an array. And then I'm going to create one function that is on point add, and this function will receive an event because we are talking about the mouse click, which will throw an event. So how can we get the new point? So let's say I'm going to create one variable with the name of new point, and this variable will contain the x and y coordinates of the mouse click. So there is a property which will be coming along with this event, that is client x, which will give me the x position of mouse click, and y position I can get using event.clientY. Now my new point is ready. Let's add it into the points array. So how can I do? I'll preserve the previous points and then I'll add the new point here. So one thing to notice, that these pointers will be rendering inside this canvas, and also we'll be able to click inside this canvas. So we need to pass the points and onPointAdd function to our canvas. So I can pass them as a prop. So I can pass the points as points and onPointAdd as same onPointAdd. Let's go into canvas and I can grab the props which I'm receiving, that is points and onPointAdd. So one thing I can do it here, that whenever onClick event is happening onto this div, I'm going to simply call onPointAdd function. So now if I click anywhere onto this canvas, those points will be added into this point state. And currently we are not able to visualize that. So let's work on that. So what I can do, I can map on the points. I can say points.map, and for each point I want to render something here. So let's create one more component with the name of circle, and let's initialize this component as a dummy component. And then I'm going to remove this div, and I'll create one div here with the class name of circle, and this div will be an empty div, and this circle component will receive one prop with the name of point. And in order to render the circle at correct position, I need to style it from left and top. So I can say from left use point.x, because we have stored the position in terms of x and y. Similarly, I'll say from top use point.y. So I can go back into my canvas and I can import the circle component right away here. And now inside the map, I can render my circle component, and it requires one property, that is point, which I can pass directly like this. Now, even if I click anywhere in the canvas, I cannot see any circle. And that is because we have not styled our circle component. So I can go into app.css and I can select the circle using circle class. And I can say the position I want is as absolute, and the width I want to utilize of 20 pixel in same 20 pixel of height, and the background color I want to be black, and because it is a circle, so border radius I want to be 50%. And now if you see, I'm able to draw the points. Let me refresh it. If I click anywhere, the circle is being drawn as we wanted. So now we can close the CSS file because we don't need any more CSS. Now let's go into our playground component and let's start working on this undo functionality. So I'm going to create one function with the name of onUndo, and the basic functionality of an undo feature is whenever I click on undo, the last entry should be removed. So how can I do that? I can simply update my pointers list. So I'll say set points, and here I'll use the slice property, which will start from 0th index and it will go up to points.length -1. So it will return all the pointers except the last one, and my pointer state will be now updated. So I can copy this function, and now let's attach this onDo function with onClick event on this button. So let's go into our button component, and now except children, it will receive onClick event as well, and this will be fired on click of this button. Simple. So now if I click on undo, you can see the pointers are being removed one by one. Now let's reload it. Let's add some points into sequence, and if I click on undo, you can see it is doing undo in sequence. One more property I want to add on this button, that is disabled, which I can attach directly to my button. And in some scenario, I want my button to be disabled. For example, in case of undo, whenever the length of points array is 0, I want this button to be disabled. So now if you see, undo button is disabled because I don't have anything to make it undo. So if I create one pointer and if I click on undo, it is doing its work, and now it's disabled because I have nothing to do undo. Now the second feature on which we have to work is redo. And redo means whatever you have done undo, you want it to come back into the same sequence. So let's see how redo works. So if I create 3 circles here, and if I am doing undo, and now if I click on redo, the circle which we just deleted should be coming back. And if I do undo 2 times, the redo should be again capable enough to bring those deleted points back. So we can simply use an array here. So I'm going to create one state and I'll call it redo stack, and initially it will be an empty array. So whenever we are doing undo, the last point is being erased off. So we have to preserve that and we have to push that into redo stack. So how can we access the last point? So I can simply say last point, and I can access it using points.length -1. And we have to push it into redo stack. So I can say set redo stack, and I want to preserve all my previous items which are sitting onto this redo stack, and then I want to push my last point. So now I'll create another function with the name of onRedo, and what we have to do, whenever I'm clicking on this redo button, I'll simply take the top element from the redo stack and I'll push it into the points array. So it will complete the whole cycle of getting the element which was lost or which we just deleted. So let's do it right now here. So I'll create one variable with the name of last undone, and I'll look into my redo stack and I'll access the topmost element which we just added, which will be sitting into the last of this array, and then I'll set my points. So I'll preserve my previous points, and then I'm going to push my last undone or the last point which we just received from our redo stack, and then I'm going to set my redo stack, and this time I'm going to use the slice functionality because we do not have to consider the last element. So as we did into the previous function, I'll start my index from 0 and it will go up to redo stack.length -1. Let's attach this function with the onClick event on this redo button. So I can say onRedo, and of course I want to disable it whenever the length of redo stack is 0. So now let's give it a try. Initially both buttons are disabled, and if I click 1, 2 and 3 circles has been drawn. If I click on undo, the first has been erased off, and if you see, redo is now into action. It can be clickable, and now if I click on it, I'm getting back my last erased or last undone item. And if you see, the redo has been disabled because we have nothing to redo because we got all the elements we have just deleted. And if I click undo 2 times, so 2 circles has been erased. And now if I click on the redo button, I'm getting the last element which we just deleted, and I can click one more time to get our second last item or second last circle which we have deleted. So our undo and redo is working as expected. Now there is one corner case which we can handle. Let me refresh the page, and you see undo and redo both are disabled. So I'm going to create 4 circles in a row, and then I'm going to use undo, and I'm creating another circle here. And if you see, the redo is still active, and if I click on redo, it is bringing back the element which we just deleted. And this is not how redo functionality works. It should be cleared whenever you enter any new item. So I can simply go into my onPointAdd function, and here I can say set redo stack as an empty array, because whenever we are adding any new item, this stack should be cleared. So now if I perform the same operation, I'm creating 4 circles in a row, I am doing undo, now redo is active, but I'm not going to apply anything right over here. And if I add another circle, you can see redo has been cleared, and now I can perform undo, I can do redo, and it is working perfectly fine. So now if I play with this, it is working perfectly fine. I can do undo and redo as much as time I want, and it is working perfectly fine. So I have a challenge for you into the next step. In the next step, instead of listening the click event inside this canvas only, you have to listen for the click events in all over the screen. The undo and redo functionality should be unaffected. It should be working as it is. And if you are able to do it, let me know into the comment section. If you really learned something new from this video, please give a like to this video, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe Code Pravah. Thanks a lot for watching.